Angeles was the first major fleet to experiment with Coronas. They bought 6 in early 1966, assigning them to their most reliable drivers as a test. The dispatcher, a grizzled veteran named Frank Kowalski, kept meticulous records. Every fuel fill-up, every maintenance item, every complaint. He expected the little Toyotas to fall apart within months. LA taxi duty was brutal, 300 miles a day, 7 days a week, constant idling in traffic, repeated full-throttle merges onto freeways, passengers slamming doors, trunks loaded with luggage. If there was a torture test for automobiles, this was it. 3 months in, Kowalski noticed something odd. The Coronas hadn't needed anything except oil changes, not even brake pads. The Checkers and Plymouths in the fleet had already required various repairs: water pumps, alternators, tune-ups. The Coronas just kept running. 6 months in, still nothing. The drivers were starting to request the Toyotas because they never broke down during shifts, meaning no lost fares. At 50,000 miles, Kowalski expected the Coronas to need major work. That's when American cars typically required valve jobs, ring jobs, or transmission rebuilds. He had the shop do compression tests on the Toyota engines. The results were shocking. Compression was still within 5% of factory specifications. The engines weren't even broken in yet. The transmissions shifted like new. The clutches showed minimal wear. The only parts replaced were filters, fluids, and 1 set of brake pads. The real shock came at 100,000 miles. In the taxi business, this was considered end of life for a vehicle. The Checkers would have had their engines rebuilt at least once by now. The Plymouths would be on their second transmissions. But the Coronas were still on all original components. The engines didn't burn oil. The transmissions didn't slip. The electrical systems worked perfectly. Even the upholstery was holding up better than the American cars, despite the constant use. Word spread through the taxi industry like wildfire. Other companies started buying Coronas. City Cab, Bell Cab, Independent Taxi. They all wanted these miraculous Japanese cars that never broke. By late 1967, there were over 200 Coronas in taxi service in Los Angeles alone. Mechanics who had been skeptical were becoming believers. These weren't just reliable cars, they were redefining what reliability meant. Let me put the Corona's fuel economy in perspective. In taxi service, with constant stop-and-go driving, air conditioning running, and fully loaded with passengers, the Corona achieved 25 miles per gallon. The Checker Marathon got 11 mpg. The Plymouth got 13 on a good day. At 300 miles per day, that meant a Corona used 12 gallons of fuel, while a Checker burned through 27 gallons. Even at 1960s fuel prices, that added up to massive savings. Over 100,000 miles, fuel costs alone saved taxi companies over $1,500 per vehicle. But here's the kicker. The Coronas kept going, and going, and going. Eddie Martinez's Corona, the one that had shocked everyone at 287,000 miles, it made it to 412,000 miles before Yellow Cab finally retired it. Not because it broke down, but because newer safety regulations required features it didn't have. The engine was still running smoothly. The transmission still shifted perfectly. They sold it to a mechanic who used it as his daily driver for another 3 years. The highest mileage Corona recorded in taxi service belonged to city cab driver James Park. His 1966 Corona accumulated 467,892 miles before a drunk driver totaled it in 1974. When they pulled the engine to check its condition, the mechanics found the cylinder bores still showed the original crosshatch pattern from the factory honing. The main bearings were within specification. The cam lobes showed minimal wear. This engine had outlasted 3 presidential administrations and was still technically serviceable. Toyota's quality control system was unlike anything American manufacturers had seen. Every single Corona engine was run on a dynamometer before installation, not a random sample. Every single engine,